All right. I think Ankur has again joined us today. Ankur is there, no? Hi, Ankur.
I think he's there. I did.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Wherever I'm wrong, Ankur, please correct me, because this is a fairly complicated subject, but I've tried to, kind of chalk out all the propositions. Okay.
Right.
So I think, probably for the first half an hour, we can just discuss the main propositions, and then, we can probably, discuss amongst ourselves as to what are the important takeaways and, what is the kind of important points which come out of this. So, this one. All right, I will not go too much into the facts of the case because I believe the facts of the case are, not important. We can straight away come to the main propositions and the takeaways, from this case. And, once we do that, then I think we will be able to probably apply those propositions to all kinds of facts and circumstances. On the IDRF group, I had shared one note which was written by Bharat. And, that note, I think is very important because I would like to discuss the three situations which Bharat has, discussed in that note, in regard to the amendment. And those three illustrations help clarifying the position of law in a very, clear manner. So the first thing which is very important for the sake of clarity and for the sake of, kind of uncomplicating things, let us not go to the Mitakshara school of law. Let us not go to the conventional school of law or Hindu school of law which prevailed before 1956. Let us start a discussion from 1956, and we can discuss. We can divide our entire conversation today in two halves. We can first talk about what was the law which prevailed from 1956 to 2005, and then what was the law which prevailed from 2005 till 2020. And then obviously, what happened after the judgment of the Supreme Court has come in 2020. So, it was in 2005 for the first time that the legislature, by way of an amendment, recognized the right of a female as a co-partner. Now, what is very important for us to understand is this: that before 2005 as well, from the period 1956 to 2005, it was not like the females did not have a right. That there's a very big misconception in our society that before 2005, females just did not have a right in the property. That is not true, and I will explain by an example. Let us say there is Mr. X. Okay, Mr. X is married to Mr. Y, Mrs. Y. Okay, and he has three children: X1, X2, and X3. X1 being a boy, X2 being a boy again, and X3 being a girl. And if all of us can probably draw a quick family chart, then it'll be easy for me to explain. So X is the male member on the family. X is married to Y, and they have three children: X1, X2, and X3. Now let us for a moment assume that X has a house, which is his self-acquired property, which is a property which is not ancestral in nature, not a joint family property. It is his self-acquired property. Let us say Mr. X unfortunately dies in 1970. Okay. Now, when Mr. X dies in 1970, he leaves behind 4 class 1 heirs as per the Hindu Succession Act, which is Y, X1, X2, and X3. Now, because of so much of confusion, a lot of people might think that X3, who's a girl, will not be entitled to any share in the property of the house of X, which X has left behind. But that is not true. That is not true because the law of 1956 to 2005 dealt with the rights of the females insofar as the self-acquired property is concerned. It is only the co-partnery property in which the females did not have a share from 1956 to 2005. So because in this case we are talking about the self-acquired property of X, it will not make a difference whether X has a daughter or a son. And in this specific case, all four of them, that is Y, X1, X2, and X3, will get 1/4 share each in the property. All right. So I hope I was clear. If there is any doubt, you please stop me in the middle, and any one of you, there are some non-lawyers also. Just one of my family friends, Raju is here, and Ashish Dhamija ji is also here. So if there is any issue, you can stop me and ask for a clarification. This is with regard from 1956 to 2005. I will once again recapitulate. They always had a right. Females always had a right in the self-acquired property of the father. And the only additional right which came in 2005 was with regard to the ancestral or the co-partnership or the joint Hindu family property. Now, all these three terms are more or less interchangeable. There is a very small kind of a distinction in between the three. I will come to that. But more or less, after 2005, they got an additional right in these three kind of properties. Before that, they had a right in the self-acquired property. So now what happened was that in 2005, the amendment came. So what became the position in 2005? Now, by way of 2005, the Hindu Succession Act was amended. Now, in the same example, let us say that X has two houses, one being an ancestral property and one being a self-acquired property. X has two houses, house A and house B. Let us say house A is a self-acquired property, but house B is a property which X is taking from his, let's say, grandfather. So that obviously becomes a kind of a ancestral property. Now, when X died in 1970, the property which is B, house B, that will not go to the girl. That will be divided only between the male members, which is X1 and X2 in this case. Because when X will die, his self-acquired property will be divided by everyone, but his property, that is B property, will not be divided by all the. Mute karna padega. We'll have to mute everyone. Pallavi, can you do that? So now, when in 1970 X died, he obviously was, his self-acquired property got devolved in equal shares, but his ancestral property only got devolved with the sons. Now, after 2005, in this, and I hope I can once again repeat the family tree if you want. If we have the family tree, it will be very easy for all of us to understand. After the 2005 Amendment Act came in, the law became clear that if at the time of the amendment, X was alive, and if after the amendment X had died, then the daughter will also have a share, because she's a female co-partner in the family, and she will definitely have a share in the family, in the ancestral property as well. So in this example, let us now change the example a little. Let us say X is again, in the same example, X is married to Y. He has 3 kids, X1, X2, X3, X1, X2 being a boy, X3 being a girl. X dies in 2009. Okay. Now let's say X dies in 2009. So in this case, X1, X2, and X3, all three will get 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 share in the co-partnership property, which is the ancestral property of the family. So because the 2005 amendment had come in, therefore the girls got a right in the co-partnership property or the ancestral property, or what is also known as the joint Hindu family property. Now, there is another very interesting thing which is again not very well known. It is fairly well known now after Valmiki Mehta. Justice Valmiki Mehta has pronounced a lot of judgments, but it was not very well known. Let's say about 10-15 years back. The law being that ancestral property or a co-partnership property is only that property which is coming from pre-1956. So only when that property was created before 1956 can it be called the ancestral property. Otherwise, all other properties will be called the self-acquired properties. Because after the Hindu Succession Act, any property which is being inherited by a male member or by a male member will be acquired by him in a self-acquired way, in a self-acquired manner. And therefore, every property which has been created after 1956 and devolved downstairs in the family tree will be taken as a self-acquired property, which means that principles of ancestral property will not apply. Now, that is not relevant for the debate today, but I just wanted to clarify that. So again, just to quickly brief what I've said till now, from 1956 to 2005, there was, from 1956 to 2005, the law was clear that the females will have a right in the self-acquired property of the father, but not in the ancestral property or the co-bastardy property used interchangeably. After 2005, the law is this, that the females will have a right in the ancestral property also, and not just the self-acquired property of father, provided that the father was alive on the date of the amendment, which happened sometime in September 2005. So now we've covered from 1956 to 2005, and obviously 2005 amendment, continued till 2020, and it still continues, but with a clarification now from the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court now has expanded the rights of the female even further by saying that the death or the presence of the father, the presence of the father at the time of amendment is also not important. If, let us say, the father has died much before the amendment, let us say somewhere in 1980 or 1970 or 1990, even then in those cases, female will still have a right in the co-bastardy property, irrespective of the fact that whether the father existed, was alive on the date of amendment in 2005 or not. Which means that now, if we come back to our example, if the father had died in 1970 again, with this 2005 Amendment Act coming into being, the female in 2020 today, on 21st August 2020, if there is a female, that female can very well go ahead and claim right in both the self-acquired property and the ancestral property of a father, because now the factum of the matter that the father was alive in 2005 or not is not relevant anymore. Now, there are some specific things which will be important for me to kind of highlight. There is a lot of debate about what about the rights of married women, who got married before 2005. Now, as far as my understanding is concerned, the fact that a female got married before 2005 or not is inconsequential. It is not consequential in terms of the law is concerned. In terms of the positive law is concerned, in terms of the act, that is in terms of the act is concerned. The only thing which the brother can do is set up a case of oral family partition or an oral family settlement deed. So I'll explain again. Let us say in this case, we have a family where X is the male member, Y is the wife, and X1, X2, X3 are three children of X. X1, X2 being boys and X3 being a girl. Again, the same family tree which I've given right from the beginning. Let us say X dies in 1970 and X3, who's the girl, gets married in 1980. The girl gets married in 1980. Let us say that out of the joint estate of X, out of the self-acquired property or ancestral property of X, the X1 and X2, the brothers spent a lot of money on the wedding of the girl. Let us say, they spent like 1 crore or 2 crores on the wedding. And therefore, the girl got married, the girl went to another family in terms of, the society. Now, in such cases, the girl shall continue to have the right irrespective of her marriage. The only exception to this is if the boys can successfully plead and prove before the court that, listen, when X3 got married in 1980, there was a family understanding or a family settlement which took place between X1, X2 and X3, where the X3 agreed that, okay, fine, you spent good money on my wedding, and insofar as the properties which are left behind by my father, I'm not going to claim anything in it. I'm simply going to relinquish all my claim. I'm not going to claim anything in it. And therefore, to that extent, I will be in a different family and you guys enjoy the property. If the brothers can prove this case before a court of law, then in that case, the female will not have any right, because the law is very clear that any partition which took place before 2005 cannot be reopened. If the partition has taken place and if the properties have been divided, then that partition cannot be reopened, as simple as that. So now, what are the ways in which the boy can prove this kind of a partition? If the boy has a settlement deed, written settlement deed, nothing like it. If the boy has a registered partition deed, nothing like it. Because if the boys have that, then they will definitely be able to scot. 2005 amendment will not apply, because the partition has already taken place, and therefore the female does not have any right. Even in cases where the boys don't have a written agreement or a written family settlement deed, even in those cases, they can prove, an oral kind of a settlement, because it is settled position of law that family settlements can be proved even if they are not written, provided that circumstantial evidence shows that that kind of a family settlement happened. The surrounding features of that event should demonstrate that that kind of a family settlement did take place. So in that case, the females will be able to the rights of the females can be avoided by the brothers. Now, one more important question is that how, again, this I've covered, that how is the right of the female changed after 2005 and pre 2005. Basically, the change is that pre 2005 they did not have any rights in the ancestral or the co-partnership property, also known as the joint family property. And after the 2005 amendment, they have started to have a right in this. Now, I would like to just one second. See if there is anything which I have left. There is one point with regard to the fact that partition is not complete unless and until both preliminary and final decree are passed. That is something which we all know, that until the final decree is passed, the girl's right cannot be avoided by saying that, listen, partition is not complete, because the girl's right can only be avoided when if a trial is going on, then both preliminary and final decrees have been passed. Unless that happens, the girl's right cannot be defeated in so far as a trial is concerned. Now, one of the things, just one second. If Pallavi, can you share that idea, that Bharat Chug's note by screen share?
Just give me 5 minutes.
I sent it on the IDRF group. I can send it again if you want.
No, I have it.
Yeah, Pallavi, you're sharing?
Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
There you go. Are you able to see it, Roshan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So if we can come from impact of the judgment, if you can just, scroll down a little. Yes. So, yeah. So, again, one more family tree. Let's all draw this. I will also draw it. And this is Bharat's example, which is, again, very effective, I think. That's why I shared it on the book. So, the father has 3 sons and 1 daughter. Let's say father is F. and S1, S2, S3, and D. Okay. Just to get the basics right, before 2005, the coparcenary would have included only father, S1, S2, and S3, and their children, grandchildren, that is up to 3 lineal descendants. In other words, it would comprise F plus his 3 sons, plus his grandchildren, plus his great grandchildren, would all form part of this premium club. So, no entry for women before 2005. As I just mentioned, that before 2005, they were not a part of the coparcenary. Equal copartner. So in a case today, the coparcenary would comprise of F, 3 sons, 1 daughter, etc. And D takes equally as the sons, and after 2005 could also seek a partition to get her share culled out. So obviously, if you are a copartner, then you can also seek a partition by filing a suit for partition. Just sign. So basically, now let's just, if you can scroll down, Pallavi. In this family tree, situation 1. Let's talk about situation 1 now. Let's say F died in 2017. D's brothers, which are the S1, S2, and S3, assert that they are owners of equity house to the extent of 1/3 each and want to sell the house. D feels that she has an equal right in the property and wants to sue in 2019. Can she? Now the answer to this, Bharat says, is yes, she can. She has an equal right along with her brothers. She gets 1/4. This is by virtue of the fact that she is an equal co-partner along with her brothers and entitled to an equal share. Section 6 of the HSA tells us this. This is and has been clear always. The judgment in Vineet Sharma doesn't deal with this situation. So this is the first very simple example that, just one second. That this is like the normal case where F dies in 2017. All four children will get 1/4 each, because after 2005 female became a copartner. Now situation 2. Let's say F died in 1983. This is before the 2005 amendment and before D became a copartner. Can the female in 2020 seek partition of the equity house? The answer is yes. This is where the judgment helps. As I mentioned, before this judgment, if the father was not alive at the date of the amendment, then in that case, the female could not have asserted her right. But thanks to this judgment, it is not relevant anymore whether the father was alive in 2005 or not. The only thing that is relevant is that if the female is there, she's a co-partner, she'll get a right. So the clear answer to this is that 1/4 right, all four will get. Now, we can come to situation 3. Situation 3. Pallavi, if you can scroll down. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Now, situation 3 is, just one second. Let me see if there is, I hope I'm not missing out on anything important. Yeah. In situation 3, F dies, the father dies in 1995. The brothers of D continue to occupy equity house. D gets married and moves in with her husband in 2000. Can she in 2020 seek partition of the equity house? Now, this is where the oral partition comes in. Wait, not that simple. Now, in this situation, S1, S2, and S3 assert that an oral understanding was arrived at soon after father's death to the effect that since a lot of money was spent on D's marriage, S1 to S3 would succeed to the property and hold it between themselves to the extent of 1/3 each. But there is no evidence of this so-called oral partition. Would D succeed in such a case in getting an equal share? After the judgment of Vinita, which is this recent August judgment, given the fact that there is no documentary contemporaneous evidence of the alleged oral partition, D will indeed succeed and get her 1/4 share regardless of the plea of oral partition. In other words, the plea of oral partition will not be worth the paper it is on. Now, I've already explained this example. This is again a repetition of that if the brothers are able to successfully set up a case for an oral partition and show it through the circumstantial evidence that the oral partition did take place, then in those cases, obviously, the female will not be able to get a right. But in cases where the brothers are only claiming an oral partition but can't show any circumstantial evidence, then in those cases, the brothers will lose and the female sister will prevail. So now if we can come to situation number 4. The safest bet would be if the brothers get a registered or a written oral partition, a written partition done. In that case, the brothers will have a clear kind of a writing to show to the court. Now, situation number 4 is F dies in 1995. His sons continue to occupy the house. D moved in with her husband in 2000. D, in need of finances, filed a suit for partition in 2002, seeking her share. Since she was not a co-partner back in the day, she sought only a 1/16th share, 1/4 share in the 1/4 share of that her father had left as class 1 legal heir and not as a co-partner. The suit got decreed and she got 1/16th of the value when the house was sold. All of this stood closed prior to 2005. After 2005, she thinks she got a raw deal and wants to assert her rights. Can she in 2020 seek to assert her rights to the extent of a full 1/4 and not a mere 1/16th? The answer is no. Since the partition crystallized everyone's rights well before the amendment in 2005, the same cannot be reopened now. As I've discussed before, partitions which are settled, which are closed before the amendment, before the 2005 amendment, cannot be opened up. They cannot be, revived. Now, the last situation number 5. And this, is the last kind of a illustration which Bharat gives. F died in 1995. Her brothers S1, S2, and S3 continued to occupy the house. D got married and moved in with her husband in 2000. D, in need of finances, filed a suit for partition in 2002, seeking her share. Since she was not a co-partner back in the day, she sought only a 1/16th share. The court passes the preliminary decree on 1 January 2004, declaring D's share to be 1/16. However, before the partition could be carried out factually, physically, and by what the lawyers call meets and bounds, the amendment of 2005 set in and made D an equal co-partner. So this is a case where the preliminary decree has been granted, but a final decree has not been granted. Now, in this case, the Supreme Court has said that where preliminary decree has been granted, but a final decree has not been granted, in such cases, the partition is not complete, and hence the 2005 amendment will inure to the benefit of the female. And on this ground, the Supreme Court has said that these are the cases on the basis of which the females can claim their rights in the co-partnership property. Please remember, these are all cases where will is not made. These are all intestate succession, and will has not been made in these cases, and therefore, because will has not been made, the rules of succession will set in. If there is a will which has been made by the father that with regard to self-acquired property, then in that case, it will go as per the will strictly and not as per these rules of succession. So I think I've covered most of the propositions which I wanted to. I think if Ankur can, probably contribute and correct me wherever I was wrong, or
No, not correct so much, but I'm just a little unclear on both the note and the analysis in terms of the proviso to the pre-2005 section and clause 3 of the current provision.
Yeah, sure.
Because
I just get
we just can see those. It's there in the judgment also if we want to see. It's at para 45 and 46.
So we'll just share that, no? May I request you, Pallavi, once again, or if you, I mean, I can also do it if you. Pallavi?
You just want the this thing, no? The Bharat Chug's this thing.
No. I think Ankur wants a particular page on the judgment. If you
On
can
the
help us
judgment,
with
all
that.
right, just give me 1 second. Sorry.
Sure.
Give me 1 second.
Page
Thank you.
26.
Which page?
26.
There it is. Yep. Are you able to see it now?
Yeah, Pallavi. Yes. Yes.
Which para, Ankur?
Para 45. The provision is extracted at page 26. If we can just. Oh, I think I have a slightly different copy, but it's para 45 in my copy.
Para 45.
Mm.
Yeah, this one here.
Page 51. Yeah, page
Yes,
51.
yeah, this is the one. So if we just see the proviso,
Hmm. You're saying before the Amendment Act came in?
this is the 1956 provision, and
Ah.
at least on a reading, it seems to suggest that uh, that the devolution will be by succession, intestate or testamentary succession, and not co-parcenary interest. So there will sort of be an automatic partition if the death happens after 2005.
So, the,
Similarly, clause 3 of the current provision, that also seems to suggest the same thing. But the note, Bharat's note somehow suggests otherwise.
क्या contradiction है अंकुर? That'll be interesting to note.
See, if we see this proviso as well as clause 3 of the current provision, which also if we scroll down, it's there, the same judgment, that seems to suggest that if the death happened after 2005 of the father, then the female relative, and there is a female relative who is a class 1 heir, then co-parcenary will not survive, and the succession will be by testamentary or intestate succession.
Right.
So in that sense, I think there was an example in the note about a 2017 death where the co-parcenary was continuing, but the co-parcenary would not continue because
So you're basically talking about the terminology, but the shares would remain the same, right?
shares will remain the same, yes.
Yes. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So I think, Ankur, you might be right because,
So shares will remain the same post amendment, but pre amendment, even the shares would change, right? Because if the proviso is applied strictly, then the female relative will get a share, no?
Yeah, so female relative will get a share from 1956 to 2005, right? If there is an ancestral property or a co-parcenary property, in
Correct.
that the female will not get a share, no? From 1956
No,
to 2005.
just read the proviso, that's why I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just see the proviso.
Yeah, sure.
Provided that if the deceased had left him surviving a female relative specified in class 1 of the schedule or a male relative specified in that class who claims through such female relative, the interest of the deceased in the Mitakshara co-parcenary property shall devolve by testamentary or intestate succession as the case may be under this act and not by survivorship. So if
So
there
you
is
are
a
saying that
female heir,
even before 2005, the co-parcenary property will get devolved.
that's what this seems to suggest, unless there has been some interpretation which excludes it. If the death of the father is post 2005, then this should come into play, and you should get intestate. The female should get by intestate succession.
Pooja has also worked on this extensively.
Yes.
What
So-
do you have to comment?
Firstly, before the 2005 amendment, the proviso provides that if the Hindu male is dying and he's having a female relative, or males who are claiming to that female relative, then the emphasis is on his part in the co-parcenary property. That is, let's say there's a person X who is dying, who is a male Hindu. He's having a co-parcenary property. He's having a son. Now, if we talk about this nuclear family, then the son is having a right over that property as a co-partner. And the father who is dying, he's also having a right over the party as a co-partner. So when the father dies, the property is divided into two parts. One, with respect to the father who is now dead, and secondly, with respect to the son. The son gets the half share here. Now, for the remaining half share, that property will devolve through succession, as according to the proviso. And then out of that property, the part will be given to the daughter. So it is not.
तो वही अंकुर इसीलिए उसने 1/4 into 1/4 1/16 कर दिया उसमें.
And also after the 2005 amendment, since the daughters have been made co-partners, so in the given example, what will happen will the property will directly be divided into two parts instead of first two parts and then out of the half part dividing into the other.
Correct.
ठीक है. All right. So basically, आई थिंक और कुछ किसी को ऐड करना है तो कर सकता है. मैं तो मतलब by the end of I think this judgment has been, I mean, we've all been very critical of Mr. Justice Mishra, but I think the judgment does pronounce a lot of clarity on the subject, and is fairly kind of helpful, I would say, in settling a lot of questions which were pending to be settled.
The only other thing that I think might have some relevance is in the note, he seems to have completely excluded oral partitions as a concept.
Yes, you're right.
In the sense that he said that it will be rejected. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure whether in all cases it's liable to be rejected. There could be a case where you can make out a reasonable argument for it.
Absolutely, Ankur. That's why, while mentioning this, I also made it a point that, if the brothers can prove circumstances are there, then you don't really need to have a written partition or a written deed. You can always, prove through circumstances that the oral partition did take place. So yeah, to that extent. So just to if there is anyone else, they can come in, but just one last kind of a recapitulation. From 1956 to 2005, the females did not have any right in the co-partnership property. They only had right in the self-acquired property of their father. From 2005 to 2020, the females have a right both in the co-partnership property and in the self-acquired property of the father. The father having died in 2005 or before that or after that is not consequential anymore. The fact that the female got married before 2005 is also of no consequence. These are all issues which are not of any consequences. They will not make any difference to the right of the female. The only thing that is of consequence is whether there was a partition before 2005 or not. And if there was a partition before 2005, which the brothers can prove, in only those cases can the share of the female be excluded. So I think very progressive judgment. I mean, I personally really like the judgment and the intent behind the judgment. Most of the girls will now be able to claim rights in the property. And
one query. So now, if we imagine a situation where a daughter died before 2005, she left behind children. After 2005, yes, she acquires co-partnership rights, but she's no longer there. Can her children claim anything out of her co-partnership share now?
To the best of my knowledge, they can't, because if before the amendment the female died, then her right also went with her, and because she was never able to create an interest for herself in the property. Her sons and daughters would logically not be able to create the same. But this is obviously subject to correction if Ankur has something to add or anyone else. I don't think they will have a right, because yeah.
I think again subsection 3 might be relevant for that. So
subsection 3 of section 6, na?
Of the new provision. Because that allows people claiming through the female line to also make out a claim.
But Ankur, इसमें तो अच्छा, but right जब तक amendment नहीं है उसके पहले ही वो the female died, no? So let's see. Section 3 का हाँ, okay. You're saying any particular part of section 3?
No, but see, Roshan, again, and Shumendu also, we can just think through. If the example is that the female has died, but her son is still in existence, the son will become a co-parsoner now, right? Applying the same.
No, but can the son become a co-parsoner in the family of the female? Because now the son is is already a co-parsoner in the family of his father. So can he become co-parsoners in two families at the same time? Pooja, you want to come in? You come in.
I think this is one of the most crucial criticisms which have come up because of this judgment. Because when we are making daughters co-partners, we are also making the people who are claiming through them co-partners. Because if we substitute in that example a son, then we will definitely conclude that the son's son will have a claim over that property. And when we are equalizing the daughter with the son, then ultimately what we are doing is that the two parallel families, one which belongs to the in-laws of the daughter, and the other which belongs to the father. So there is some are saying that the Supreme Court has opened.
And sorry,
Yeah,
please,
sure.
please.
No, please. I was.
That's a very interesting person. Yeah, Ankur, please.
And I was just saying that in terms, if we see the provision, then subsection 1B says that she'll have the same rights as if she were a son. So since the son's son has in that sense a right to, so you could make an arguable case to say that the daughter's son will also have the same
Yes. Now you're right. So to that extent, I think.
But you can argue it both ways.
It can be argued both ways, but Pooja, it will be interesting if we can get some similar kind of a case having similar facts, because we can have one of the judgments from 2005 to 2020 which might be dealing with a similar fact scenario, and then we will be able to probably then discuss with Shumendu in a more precise manner. But I mean, I think from the looks of it, if the female is absolutely equivalent to the male, then logically, yes, Shumendu, I stand corrected. And in those cases, the children should get a right.
So the counter argument would be that this is a modification of the Mitakshara law, and Mitakshara law would have excluded the daughter's son. And the modification is limited to the extent of giving only the daughter rights, not the daughter's son. So, so since the modification doesn't extend to the daughter's son, it may not.
Then again, we also have Section 4 of the Hindu Succession Act, which is having an overriding effect over the Mitakshara law. Like with respect to all the things which the Act covers, the provisions of the law will have effect over Mitakshara.
Yeah, that's right. Because all the conventional law has gone, no? Ankur, yes. All the conventional law, the Hindu law has gone after the 56 Act.
To the extent modified, no?
And even there were certain discussions.
No. Ankur is saying only to the extent modified. The ones in which there is no contradiction will remain, no? Pooja?
Yes. So there were discussions at the inception of this law that whether we should have a parallel law which shall deal with all these issues, or should we build this law on Mitakshara school of thought. So since we stick to the former, that we should build it on the Mitakshara school of law, so there are very contradictory judgments of the high courts particularly, because the courts rely on the Mitakshara school of law, they base their reasoning in the Mitakshara school of thought, and then they pronounce the judgments, overlooking the provisions express positive law which is there. So that is one of the areas where conflict exists.
Well, this seems to be an interesting area.
Yeah. It's always been complicated. So good. I think we've had a fruitful discussion. Pallavi, I think we can, call it a day.
छोटा सा query था. If we
please go on. Shumendu, please go on. Yeah.
The right of partition. This judgment says कि co-personally में now females will have a right of partition. Co-personally में. Now in a self-acquired property, so anyway they had that partition right. अगर self-acquired property था, that to remain. He can claim for partition even if it's.
But वो तभी claim कर सकता है partition self-acquired में जब father नहीं हो. So let us say अगर father है और 3 बच्चे हैं तो obviously वो नहीं कर सकते, right?
Self-acquired में तो if the father is there, then nobody has a right.
Exactly.
So you don't have a right. So.
Father dies, then in a self-acquired property, she'll have a right to partition. Anyway.
Yeah, correct.
Thanks.
Somebody seems to have put up a note on the chat saying yes, her children can claim. So if that can be clarified.
As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, there is a judgment of Supreme Court also, and there are a couple of cases which are going on where the children are claiming right over a mother's ancestral property. A lot of these are from South India, from Karnataka and all. I think I have it. I'll kind of share it on the group once there is. But Lavika here also is, you can unmute yourself and speak if you want. She says that yes, her children can claim.
ठीक है, she has an opinion. Lavika, if you want to come in.
Yeah,
and
you can. The whole purpose of this round table discussion is that only to encourage participation. I think she's.
अच्छा, Raju Bhaiya will say. Raju Bhaiya, you want to come in? आपका भी एक query है, मैं देख रहा हूँ. Raju Bhaiya. He's muted. Raju Bhaiya, are you there?
Hello.
हाँ भैया बताओ ना क्या query आपने लिखा.
Good evening. मेरा एक query था, personally I think I have sent it to you, कि अगर अभी recently the property has been divided, say अब तो खैर सारा चीज retrospective हो गया, can the married sisters can file a suit against the distribution of the property by brothers?
So if I get it correctly, what you have mentioned in the box is your question, right?
Yeah.
Let me just read that out. You're saying in case the property is sold and money has been distributed a year back by male members, whether married sisters can claim their rights since the amendment is retrospective. Now you first need to tell us कि ये जो property बिकी है कौन से साल में बिकी है राजू?
ये अभी मान लीजिए 1 साल पहले suppose
2019 में
ये जो
amendment
आने के पहले ही बिकी है मान लो.
Amendment आने के बाद नहीं, amendment 2005 का है.
हाँ नहीं 2005 और ये 2020 में जो रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव
2020 अमेंडमेंट नहीं है, वो कुछ और है. तो मैं आपको आंसर दे देता हूँ, अगर 2019 में प्रॉपर्टी बिकी है और फीमेल के कंसेंट के बिना बिकी है या जो सिस्टर है उसके नॉलेज के बियॉन्ड बिकी है.
अच्छा, if they have consented or if they have relinquished their right, then it doesn't matter.
हाँ, then तो फिर the female has lost the right.
ठीक है.
अगर फीमेल ने नहीं कंसेंट दिया है,
हाँ,
तो वो बहन सूट फाइल कर सकती है और सूट फाइल करके भाइयों को पैसा देना पड़ेगा.
राइट. माने
और अगर लेटर से ये 2004 में बिकी होती और 2004 में बिककर मतलब भाइयों ने पैसा यूज किया होता, तब इन दैट केस भी देना पड़ता.
हाँ, तो मतलब ये बेसिकली 2020 या 20 के अमेंडमेंट के कारण जो है 2005 के पोजीशन जो है वो रीइंस्टेट हो जा रहा है. और
नहीं, वो एक स्पेसिफिक चीज को लेके राजू भैया.
अच्छा,
बट 2020 का जजमेंट बस इतना कर रहा है कि द फैक्ट दैट फादर वाज अलाइव और नॉट हैज बिकम इनकॉन्सिक्वेंशियल.
ओके.
अदरवाइज बाकी लॉ सेम है.
थैंक यू.
ठीक है. ओके, सो आई थिंक विल कॉल इट अ डे. पल्लवी.
Yep. All right. See you guys.
है ना? चलो, thank you everyone.
Thanks, Pallavi, you can just share those judgments.
I will actually. I'm going to just find out and send it to you. On the idea.
और पता है ये मतलब अंकुर आता तो पहले ही मेरा कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल हो जाता है कि मैं कुछ गलत बोलूंगा तो I'll be corrected. And
that's a good thing, no?
he's 5-6 years senior to me. I've learned a lot from him.
That's a good.
So and
I just have to check about this judgment. I think it might be of a different personal law, so I just have to check. I remember last year we did something on that, but I will share it with you, Ankur, on the IDR review.
Right. Thank you.
All right.
Ankur, try karna yaar whenever you can come, no, especially when you know it's complicated stuff which is involved. It always helps. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Sure. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.